I really didn't know what to do. I was very clueless and I was afraid that something would happen to my mom.
Welcome to React, where we unpack Reddit stories from youth for youth. We are your hosts, I'm Sofia.
And I'm Delvin.
And in today's video, we will be discussing the different ways to prepare for the death of a loved one.
But before we start, we would sincerely appreciate it if you could show us your support by hitting the subscribe and the notification bell down below.
Okay, Delvin, so for today's story, it's slightly sentimental and a bit more on the sensitive side. So OP, basically, he grew up with a single mom as OP's dad passed away when he was a teen. So his mom was the sole caregiver and breadwinner of the house. So unfortunately, his mom fell sick and had to stop working because her condition was really bad. But despite being more matured at now the age of 23, OP still believes that he cannot carry on with life without her. So OP feels bad because his mom wouldn't be able to see her grandkids, as he also recently broke up with his ex. So he's currently trying to remain hopeful despite having to worry about his sick mother, as well as healing from his relationship. And he's been through many therapy sessions due to feeling depressed, but it just doesn't work. So OP wants to know how to handle this kind of situation. So what do you think?
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's quite a lot.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah, and okay, let's preface this by saying that we are not qualified professionals.
Yeah, most
so
definitely.
any word that comes out of our mouth, any advice, just take it with a pinch of salt.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
So
from personal experiences.
Yeah, and OP is 23 years old and we are not as old as
Yeah,
him. So,
exactly.
Yeah, just from our own life experiences, our own opinions.
Right.
I think it's definitely important that we address the emotional side of things, right? Like there's a long way to go before even reaching that point where he can just
Processing that entire feeling of
and
grief.
talking about process, you've heard about the 5 stages of grief?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like most of us will go through these 5 stages, which is the first being denial, and there is anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance finally.
I mean, I can relate with the OP in the sense of having a single mom. So in the sense of that feeling of not being able to carry on life without them, that one I can relate to because definitely that person's been there as your only pillar of support throughout your entire 23 years of life. So yeah, I can definitely understand that pain in that sense. Definitely not to the full extent, but I can sort of relate to it. Losing someone, I wouldn't say who is super important in my life, like how OP's mom is super important for him. But I recently lost my uncle, so my mom's brother, and what he had was recurring cancer. So he fought through it 2 times, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
Right. So he sort of outlived the years the doctor told him he would live for.
Okay.
And when he passed on, we were all expecting it. So in that sense, I feel like we had something that I would term as anticipatory grief.
Okay.
If you know what I mean.
I think that's an actual concept. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think we already started that whole process of the 5 stages many years ago.
Right.
Back when he was first diagnosed.
Yeah.
So that's when the denial would have come in, the anger would have come in. I feel like after he passed on, it started from bargaining and acceptance.
I get it.
That whole part.
Yeah.
Because we knew it was coming, but coming to terms with it will obviously be hard. I think that's the same case for OP here because he knows it's coming. He knows that eventually there will come a day where his mom is not there.
Yeah.
And as hard as that is for him to come to terms with, for him to deal with, it's something that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And as much as we say to the OP oh, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be alright, the pain that they will go through is different from anything we will feel.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the reason why a lot of us, the moment we hear this type of situation, what most of us think, what most of us advise, the first thing we advise him is keep going, or don't keep your head up, that kind of thing, or just go on with life. But I think the reason why that might even be present in the first place is because of societal norms of how we view, how we expect someone to act a certain way about grieving. Yeah, so what do you think about that?
As the individual, as a person yourself, only you would know what you're feeling. So, I mean, it's clearly unfair lah.
Yeah, so there's definitely pressure from society to, to wrap things up quickly, move on, and like keep track of your emotions,
Right,
that kind of thing,
yeah.
you know? Yeah, so, and I think like we have to remember first and foremost that we are all humans. And we should have that human touch
Right.
with everyone that we meet. And so when you know someone going through this type of situation, I don't think the first thing you should say is like to give a rational advice. I think
Right.
it's best to empathize with them
Right.
first.
I mean, I most definitely agree with you because, like I said, when I was going through that time with my uncle passing on, right, I was clueless as to what to do for my mother because she was really close to her brother, and not having my sister there with me because she relates to my mom much more than I do.
Oh.
I really didn't know what to do. I was very clueless and I was afraid that something would happen to my mom. And the only thing I could do at that point of time was to sit with her and let her know that no matter what, I'll be there for her. And I think that's something that not even just as family, but as friends, as people, supporting them from the outside. That's something we should all do. Like you said, empathize without giving them anything rational. Because when you're that hurt, when you're that broken, you wouldn't want to hear anything rational. What are some ways you would cope with losing a loved one? And what are some advices you would give? Let us know in the comments down below. So Sophia, we talked a lot about like how we as individuals can support people who are going through grief. But how about that individual themselves? How do you think we can cope with grief? Yeah, it's a loaded question, I know.
It's a bit, I think for me personally, how I would cope with grief is finding an outlet for sure. So it could be like through your friends, like any support system that you have, like renting to them, just having them be by your side, that kind of thing. And or maybe like even things to distract yourself from feeling the pain. I think that is important sometimes, though we also have to address the pains. So I think like taking time to mourn about this type of like situation is very important. Yeah. So what about you?
I mean, I fully agree with everything you said, but I would just like to add on that it's important to pace yourself.
That's
because that's something like how you were mentioning about societal expectations after mourning or grief in any sort of way. I think that's what really affects the griever, if you know what I mean, the person who's suffering, because they would then feel the expectation to be rushed, to get it over and done with. And that might not allow them to process that whole grievance. That might even trap them within the stage of depression.
That's true.
You know what I mean? So it's important to understand that there is no standard timeline for their grieving process. And it definitely varies between different people. So it's helpful to like take your own time to deal with your own emotions and to just go through the entire process and pace yourself throughout.
And as important as help and care from the others around you is, it's important to self-care for yourself first, right?
Definitely.
So,
and I think it's also important that they as an individual accept the support that they're getting. Because something I've noticed like throughout all my experiences, that people who grieve usually want to be left alone. They don't accept support. So and that hinders their process. In fact, it takes them longer to go through it because they're like, why are people pitying me? I don't need to be pitied.
Yes, I know what you mean.
So as much as it is fair and it's valid for them to feel that way, they also need to understand, even in that difficult period of time, that it's important to accept the support you're getting, as it's only there to help you.
That's about it for today's episode. Be sure to catch us on Redefine's YouTube channel for the next episode. Bye!